February 28th. We do have a quorum, and Mrs. Wiltsey, will you start with the invocation and pledge, please?
Sure. We beseech you, Almighty God, to bless this meeting of the Board of Education, so guide and rule over our hearts and our minds, that all our deliberations and decisions may be in accordance with your will and lead to the advancement and welfare of the community of Stratford for whom we serve. Amen. Please stand.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to start tonight with our student representatives report. Rebecca from Stratford High, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with everyone tonight, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to present in person. Stratford High School is pleased to formally announce their newest program, Rise Up. This program was thought of and designed by Assistant Principal Ms. Cruz. Ms. Cruz then brought her idea to Mr. Del Piano, Ms. Pugh, and Mr. Petian. Rise Up is an initiative designed to help students become more connected with Stratford High School, to earn full credit and become their best selves. Mentors were paired with one mentee, and they will meet every Wednesday to discuss their individual progress, both socially and academically. I would like to share some quotes with you. It's beneficial with the focus on the positive ways that students can better themselves and analyze their own progress to ensure they are seeking the right resources. It is also building a connection with the peer in the building that they may or may not have necessarily had before the program. One of our mentees stated, "It is helping me become a better student and I enjoy meeting with my mentor." Other quotes include, "I am getting my work done and I have enjoyed getting to know my mentor. It's been nice to be able to encourage students to do better. And this is going great. We have had a great group going and the bond is strong between all involved." Our school counseling department has finished scheduling 1,162 students into their classes at Stratford High School for next year. This concludes a process that has taken the better part of the last 4 weeks. Stratford High School appreciates all of them for all the hard work that they have done. From February 7th to 11th, Stratford High School's Black Student Union held a Spirit Week in honor of Black History Month. In addition to the Spirit Week, every day in February, a representative of the BSU shared quotes and stories honoring Black History Month over the morning announcements. On February 16th, the BSU participated in a virtual panel and held rich discussions on life and education with members from the Divine Nine and Latinx fraternities and sororities. On Wednesday, February 23rd, Stratford and Bunnell High Schools launched their Portrait of a Graduate initiative. This is a project sponsored by the Bar Foundation and supported by many stakeholders and community members that has been created to set a foundation for all Stratford graduates. The goal of the initiative is to set a North Star for all students in the Stratford Public School System, from grades K through 12, in order to prepare them for success in post-high school endeavors. The launch went very well, including videos from both Stratford High School and Bunnell High School alumni, a screencast of 5 from current students, as well as POG giveaways with t-shirts and lunchboxes. All faculty and staff from both schools also participated by wearing their Portrait of a Graduate shirts. In addition to the shirts and videos, posters in the most commonly spoken languages in Stratford, including English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Polish, Arabic, and Portuguese, were hung. The posters are indicators of all of the traits a Portrait of a Graduate celebrates, and they read as follows: "I am a communicator, collaborator, lifelong learner, compassionate and engaged community member, and solution-driven problem solver." We hope that with all of the hard work and dedication from those involved in Portrait of a Graduate, that all Stratford and Bunnell High School graduates leave exemplifying all of these traits. Also on Wednesday, February 23rd, Stratford High School's Black Student Union welcomed Dr. Osende as the guest speaker at their meeting. He spoke about the importance of academics and representing your school and community on a wider scale, opinions on the mask mandate, getting involved in as much as you can in extracurriculars, building relationships with adults in the building, and other various topics pertaining to the club's mission. The BSU and SHS as a whole would like to thank Yvonne Temple for all of her efforts in helping with various virtual discussions held with professionals who shared advice on educational and career opportunities available to students in their post-secondary experience. The Interact Club, which is run through the Stratford Rotary Club, is holding a clothing drive through the rest of March, in which all donations will be given to the Sterling House Community Center. And on to sports. Senior Isabella Taconia broke Stratford High School's high jump record for indoor track and qualified for the New England Regionals held on Saturday, March 5th. Stratford High School's Lindsay Raiwa made Stratford history this weekend as the first woman wrestler from Stratford to place at the first ever CIAC Girls State Championship Tournament. Yesterday, in what was a momentous event for the sport, the CIAC held the first ever Women's State Championship Tournament, hosting close to 150 girls statewide. Lindsay captured a fourth-place finish for Stratford, securing the Red Devils their first ever girls state place winner, and believe it or not, her first year wrestling. The boys basketball team finished their regular season 15-5. They defeated Bethel in the SWC tournament on Saturday to move on to the semifinals on Tuesday, March 1st. The girls basketball team qualified for the state tournament and is traveling to Torrington High School tonight in their first round matchup. Stratford wrestling finished 6th in the state Class L championships. Our dance team placed 3rd in SWCs for hip hop and competed in the state tournament this weekend. Our cheer team will compete in the state tournaments next weekend. Good luck and congratulations to all of our outstanding teams, and congratulations to the following students for their postseason awards. For boys basketball, we have Jaquan Kirkland and Brady North for all SWC's basketball first team, Mike Elevencia, all Colonial Division, and Jay-Sean Davis, honorable mention, all SWC. For girls basketball, we have Juliet Masisco for all Colonial Division, and Amanda and Lauren Ogrodowitz for honorable mention, all SWC. And in closing, here are just a few of the schools and universities that my classmates have been accepted into so far. Clemson University, UConn, Quinnipiac, University of Miami, Loyola of Maryland, Stonehill, Fordham University, Worcester Polytech Institute, and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And Marie Sejal was awarded the Nutmeg Scholarship from UConn, which covers the total cost of attendance for 4 years. Way to go, SHS seniors, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rayhan from Bunnell.
Sorry. All right. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rayhan Nagaidu, and it is a pleasure to be addressing you this evening. Ticket sales for the Junior Ring Dance are officially underway. The Ring Dance will be held Friday, March 18th at Vazano's Four Seasons. Thank you, Mrs. Krikorian and members of the Junior Class Council for all your hard work and planning. This month, students from various leadership groups organized a series of events and activities in honor of Black History Month. Although we acknowledge and honor Black history throughout the school year, Black History Month is a special time to highlight our Black American heroes. Students from the Men of Color Leadership Group and Living in Color Club have read announcements each morning teaching our community about Black historical figures. These two groups attended a Black History Month networking event at Webster Bank Arena on February 4th. This event was sponsored by the Fairfield County chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. These groups also hosted a social gathering at the Bunnell Cafeteria on February 24th. Over 70 members of these two clubs attended this event. Living in Color Club also hosted a Divine Nine and Latinx fraternity and sorority panel on February 16th. The panelists talked to students about their organizations and their college/professional experiences. All students from the Bunnell community were welcome to attend. The highlight of Bunnell's Black History Month programming was our second annual Black Alumni panel, which was filmed on February 24th. 6 Bunnell alumni talked about their experiences at Bunnell and their career fields. The recording will be viewed by the whole Bunnell student body during an upcoming advisory period. The importance of Black history has been embedded in our culture at Bunnell and will continue to be celebrated throughout the school year. We are thrilled with our 40 juniors who are working diligently in the afternoons to improve their scores before the SAT school day on March 23rd. Students are staying after from 2:15 to 3:55, working in groups with similar content needs and are enjoying this collaborative time together. The math department also continues to look for new curricula to extend and improve our current resources. Programs such as Desmos and GeoGebra allow students to visualize mathematics in the real world. Using and applying world data from sports to sciences continues to guide our statistical students in applying and seeing these real world results. The Bunnell students that participated in the paid steward internship at the Audubon Society of Stratford Point did a great job with their interviews. The Audubon Society showed that they were very impressed with our students and their knowledge on the environment and endangered species. The Audubon Society conducted presentations via Zoom in all of our environmental biology classes today and shared where they are with the Great Meadow Marsh Restoration Project. And they also updated students on what they have planned going forward so that students who would like to volunteer can do so. This is another great opportunity for our students to volunteer in their community while gaining knowledge about native plant and animal species. The Science Department curriculum writers have also began writing the new curriculum for the biotechnology elective that will be offered to students in the upcoming school year. This will give our students the opportunity to explore another STEM career and focus on the advances in biotechnology, how they affect humanity, and the ethical issues that may arise. The curriculum writing will also start planning the new neuroscience elective, which helps to aim how we perceive and interact the world around us. This includes how we move, think, feel, and learn. This course is intended to introduce students to common practices used in neuroscience, such as neuroimaging and analyzing electrophysiological data. Also in honor of Black History Month, students from the new African, Black, and Latino Studies course celebrated the accomplishments of the influential African Americans by creating a freedom trail of projects linked by QR codes for students to scan. ELA teachers are also using books in their classrooms to promote a love of reading, invite discussions that lead to student inquiry and critical thinking, foster cooperation and collaboration, and support diverse responses to text. This week in Mr. Soto's journalism class, they began publishing news articles to Scribe's new online platform. The debut articles include students' perspectives on AP level courses, the Ukrainian war with Russia, and how students are settling into their new semester classes. Each article is written by staff reporters, included quotations from students and staff, and have been edited by our team of editors. In the athletics department, Nicholas Demange won his weight class at the SWC wrestling tournament, while Brandon Toscano won his weight class at the Class M state championships. 4 student athletes will also be recognized next week, signing their letters of intent to play collegiate sports. Theo Lanham and Josh Santos for football, Zachary Souza for lacrosse, and Alexis Aquilino for track. Brian Toscano and Taylor Rosa are being recognized as our athletes for the student of the month, for the month of March, In the theater arts, Bunnell High School has begun releasing episodes of its production, Vintage Hitchcock, a live radio play. Links to the recordings can be retrieved by emailing Mr. Rogers. We also have begun auditions for our spring musical, James and the Giant Peach. Information about auditions can be found outside the choir and band rooms. Once again, thank you for allowing me to share all of the great things that are happening at Bunnell. Thank you.
Thank you, Rayhan. This is always a highlight of the meeting. I love hearing what you guys are up to, and thank you for giving us some of your time. And if you guys have something better to do, please feel free now to go do it. You're not stuck with us. Moving on to presentations, Dr. Asunde.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I'd like to take a moment. Dating back a few months back, we decided that it would be a good thing to take every effort to recognize people for their work. So every month, Cabinet, we have discussions and we like to recognize people. This month, we are going to recognize members of our finance department. For a host of reasons, they are really part of this engine that keeps our district operating, but also they are the department that makes sure people get paid. So I would like to call on Ms. Mangini to introduce the group and say a few words, and then after we can maybe do a quick photo down there. Ms. Mangini.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to have this opportunity this evening to recognize an incredible group of dedicated Stratford Public Schools employees that I personally am proud to say are part of my office team. These individuals represent some of the truly unsung heroes of our district during the past 2 years of the pandemic. I'm first going to acknowledge Dr. Kevin Clemmie. Dr. Clemmie began his position as grant administrator, managing approximately $6 million in grants. Over the past 18 months, that amount increased to over $27 million in grants. Most of those are the additional federal grants through the American Rescue Plan Act. And all of these grants arrived with very specific guidelines and processes. Throughout this time, Kevin never once missed a beat in helping to move the district forward in handling the grant funds. He has truly gone above and beyond to assist all of us from writing the grants, interpreting the guidelines, establishing grant budgets, and monitoring spending. The management of these additional grants definitely added to his workload, but through his commitment and dedication, he continues to guide the district in the administration of these grants and manages to keep a calm demeanor and a ready smile. Next, ladies, why don't you join Kevin up here? Next is a group of ladies that single-handedly keep the district's financial operations moving. And I'm proud to say that they do so under the outstanding direction of the Director of Finance, Susan Nicholson. During the early days of the pandemic, when most of us were working at home remotely, this incredible team knew the importance of their responsibilities. As Dr. Sunday mentioned, that include getting employees paid, first and foremost, assisting with health insurance issues, which quite honestly were a serious concern during that period of time, paying vendors to keep the lights on and the heat going, and ensuring that the district operations continued as needed. They staggered shifts so they could social distance in the office as they processed payrolls and ran checks. Often their work is taken for granted, but through the pandemic, the district really needed their dedication and efforts more than ever. We all had so much to worry about during those days. Late paychecks and unpaid utilities certainly could have just added an unbelievable level of stress for the district and for all of us personally at that time. I simply cannot emphasize enough how wonderful this team is. They are without a doubt the best business office team I have ever had the pleasure of working with, and I am so grateful to have become a part of all of their team. So I ask you to join me as we extend our heartfelt thanks to Susan Nicholson, Director of Finance, Debbie Goff, Accounting Assistant, Michelle Bacon, who couldn't be with us this evening, but she is the Purchasing Specialist, Carmen Montero, Payroll and Benefits Specialist, and Dr. Kevin Clemmie, our Grant Administrator.
Moving on to public forum. I believe we have 3 public speakers this evening. You are limited to 3 minutes. Mrs. Wiltsey, will you do the timing for me this evening? If you are running short on time, Mrs. Wiltsey will give you a heads up. And before you begin your statement, please give us your name and address. First up tonight will be Mike Fiorello.
Good evening, Mike Fiorello, 20 Red Fox Road, Stratford. I'm a proud teacher here at Stratford High School and proud president of the Stratford Education Association. First, allow me to thank members of the Finance Subcommittee and members of the Board of Education for their votes and public statements of support of teachers during this year's budget process. The commitment to reinstate the 2 full-time equivalency positions slated for elimination from the high schools and one of the 2 enrichment elementary teachers is heartening and necessary. I need to add, however, that while a return to status quo is necessary, it is not sufficient to operate a school district efficiently and effectively. At the high schools in particular, we have known for years, since a change in scheduling was first proposed, that in any iteration, 8-drop-2, 4x4, full block scheduling, modified block scheduling, we always knew additional staffing was required. We have known, and we have said so, publicly and repeatedly before this body. The SEA pledged its support for such a change on the condition that high schools be fully staffed. Right now, Bunnell and Stratford High have overcrowded study halls. At the same time, students are concerned about having enough credits to meet increasing state requirements for graduation. Students want to take classes that cannot be offered because we simply do not have the staff to teach them. A status quo staff at each high school will mean more of the same next year. Large classes of core academics, large classes of introductory elective courses, failure to offer advanced electives, full study halls, and students in search of credits to fulfill their requirements. Please remember this when the Town Council sends its allocation back to the board. Please remember that the high school principals did not request the elimination of 1.0 full-time equivalents, nor did they request the status quo. Each of them requested additional staffing. They know, and we the teachers know, and certainly ask the students and the families, they know that more staffing is needed, not status quo, and certainly not fewer. It will be tempting when we see that number from the Town Council to look at salary and benefits, and it will be tempting to look at teachers' salary and benefits. We know that's where the money is. Please remember what our students truly need. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jenna Wright.
Good evening, it's Jenna Wright, and I'm from Walbrook Avenue. I just wanted to say thank you again for hearing our voices at the last meeting and how our kids have been impacted by the restrictions, and hopefully going forward we do everything possible to keep moving ahead. Specifically at the high school level, I know that we have counselors and we have tutors available to help with mental health and academic support, which is great. But I also was curious about advisory days and how that is put together, like how the criteria is selected, and are the teens involved in, coming up with what they will be doing in advisory. For example, if they could have interactive activities instead of like watching slideshows and doing surveys and things like that. I don't know if you would be able to answer that for me.
Mrs. Wright, they might be able to answer that for you possibly after the meeting, or I'm certain that somebody might be able to address that for you at a later moment.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And our third speaker will be Brian Sturbis.
How you doing? I'm Brian Sturbis. I'm at 935 Whippoorwill Lane. I want to say I really appreciate us being able to go to mass choice in our schools. I think it's extremely important moving forward that, we really follow the data, right, that's out there for us to be able to grab for ourselves. I wish we can follow the CDC's guidance, but even our own Stratford Health Department recognized their guidance was based on flawed data, actually, when it came to the Arizona and California studies. I think it's really important that we be the adults in the room and really try to do what we can for our kids with not just masks, but everything else that we're going through. And we could sit here and blame COVID for, what's happened in our communities, but at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, it's not really COVID that did it. It's really mandates and people making decisions that, in my opinion, was based more on safetyism than it was on critical thinking skills and emotional intelligence. I think moving forward, we have to really focus on the children. I mean, they've missed a lot. I can't even imagine being a junior and senior last year and what you missed out on. It's great to hear, the students here talking about a junior ring dance. We're getting back to that, and I think that's extremely important to get back to that normalcy for them so they can have these experiences, which are vital to growing up. I know mental health is a big issue. My friend Travis over there, he's in the mental health industry. He's getting phone calls left and right, an influx, and they're all children. So I think it's extremely important. It's great to hear tonight through the budget talks about Ess Grant Funds. I don't know the acronym, but I probably messed it up. But the grant funds with focusing on that and trauma, especially at that, and also to, children that didn't have the resources at home during the past couple of years to help them get up to speed to where they need to be, because it's about a community of kids, not just one side of town or the other. Again, I'm happy that people are finally following actual science and data, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Teresa, those were our 3 speakers, yes? Okay, perfect, thank you. Moving on to our administrative executive report, Dr. Sende.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening to the board. I'd like to start my executive report really just kind of doing a recap and taking a moment to really express my appreciation to the board. This is my first budget process here in Stratford, and while I'm sure you can probably say the same, there was a great deal of education that happened. As you heard from SEA President Mike Fiorello, the budget as presented is presented in a way that is mindful for the financial tax burden on the community, and also constructed based on the historical appropriations. But at the same time, it doesn't deliver a wish list for the Stratford Public Schools. So in the work that we have done with everybody who's been involved in this process, we tried to present forth a responsible budget that we felt would still position us with relative confidence to be able to meet some of the board goals. Now, for me as superintendent of schools, over the last 3 weeks, I've had a chance to watch all of you engage in deep conversations and challenge ideas. But what has come across to me quite consistently through every one of those workshops is that you have kept Stratford kids at the center. There were reductions that several members made proposals and amendments to reinstate because you understand the value that they bring to the table. But I've also communicated to this board that there's a tremendous amount of work that we have in front of us. And the work is not going to be over after fiscal year 23. So those are going to be some real conversations that we have. I'm looking forward to tonight as we unpack this topic. But again, I want to express my sincere gratitude for the thoughtful conversations, the lively debates, and the discussions we've had as we look to move forward a budget to the town for their consideration. Secondly, I'd like to touch on mass choice as a transition process which we began today. A little bit over a week ago, we announced to our stakeholders that we were making that transition based on the governor's transition to local control. And I'm happy to say that in my communication with our principals today to get a good sense of how the first day went, across the board, it was positive. I heard different things from students have been respecting other students' right to choice. I've heard different things such as teachers are having productive conversations with students and students are having productive conversations with teachers around choice. But I would go as far as saying probably the most heartwarming of this is the fact that kids and staff are simply saying they have the opportunity now to see another person smile. And I think that's been long overdue. So while we are in this phase, it's still important that we continue to promote this concept of self-responsibility for everybody, because we're still not completely out of the pandemic. Kim Velasquez and a host of other people, Pam and Jeannie, we've been working with the state to secure those resources. We're going to look to get that into the hands of our students and staff over the next week or so. But I will bring back and underscore the fact that we are not out of the pandemic. So it's on everybody to exercise choice and self-responsibility to remain as healthy as possible. I want to take a quick moment and recognize a group who I had a chance to spend the evening with last week. When I first joined the Stratford Public Schools, and I think I shared last week, dating to March, it would be a year since I've been working with the board and since I've been appointed by the board. Feels like 3 years sometimes, right? I'm enjoying every moment of it. But when I went through that process, I heard so much about parenting. And last fall, I had a chance to visit and connect with Sarah North and her team. And last week, I spent an evening after one of our workshops with our families. This is cohort number 9, correct? I'd like to give a round of applause and recognize that group. It's just a really impressive group, and we had a chance to respond to questions and engage in dialogue around the best ways to support districts and the board around their work. Advocacy, systemic improvement, we talked about how policy is constructed, we talked about different opportunities to partner with schools and partner with the districts for overall improvement, and we talked about the budget. So again, I'm looking forward to this cohort going through the program and also seeing their contributions down the road to certainly advance the interest of the Stratford Public Schools. Again, round of applause for that group. Another point to note, last week I had a chance to join the Stratford Rotary, and I've heard deeply about some of the support programs and partnership opportunities they've engaged in. I know that was limited because of the pandemic, but we're excited to say that we're going to look to resuscitate some of those opportunities. Some of the partnership opportunities include providing our students at the elementary level with dictionaries and literacy resources, but also there is an arm of this work where they visit our elementary schools to read to our kids. It's called Rotary Reads. So I'm in ongoing conversations with our principals to see if we can, as I said, resuscitate that partnership. I want to take a quick moment to really kind of shout out one of our parents. Heather Board just received a notification that the Down Syndrome Association of Connecticut, correct, notified us that we will be receiving books, we were nominated by one of our parents, and I won't share the parent's name because I believe this parent deserves to be recognized. Melody Lerman, if I'm saying that right. And we were selected. So across our elementary schools, our schools will be receiving books in support of World Down Syndrome Day, which is March 21st. So an outstanding partnership. I'd like to make a plug for the second annual Day of Hope and Healing. That will be a few months down the road in May. I understand last year was the first year we did it. Given the stresses of the pandemic, I know a lot of people really got a reprieve and had a chance to decompress and support each other in a very inclusive and social emotional space. So that's on the calendar. We're excited about that. Denise Massari has been championing that work. And again, that will be May 12th. I'm going to close with something good, okay? Since I've been here, every day I got an email from Kim Velasquez that highlights how many COVID cases we have for the day across our school system. And today she shared with me that we had 0 cases. Definitely good. We've come a long way. Certainly the month of January was pretty rough with those numbers. But if that's any indication on the first day back, with mass choice, and let's keep this locomotive moving in the right direction. And that's it for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Sunday?
Sure.
Mr. Henry.
Dr. Sunday, I know at our last meeting, and you said you're working on it, and I don't know if you can share the plan, but I talked to you a little bit about the kids within our school system who didn't have the mandatory vaccines.
Yes.
And I don't know if you can share with us what our plans are going forward.
Absolutely. So the plan is to look at the registration process. But ultimately, there's statutory language that says that we cannot prohibit kids from enrolling or starting school. But nonetheless, what you initiated positioned me to look into it. And we've done a tremendous amount of work, and we're also using that against data. I do know you and I had an informal conversation. You received information that there's been progress in that area as well. We're going to check the data again, but since we began that process over a month ago, there's been a substantial decrease by almost 48%.
Okay.
So it's progress.
And I could be wrong, but I did speak with the attorney, and he did say we could keep kids from entering our schools who didn't have the vaccines.
I think you're wrong.
Well, that was what the attorney told me, so.
The attorney is wrong.
Yeah, I'll ask him again then.
Sure.
And then just one other question. I know there's been, and you and I have talked about this as well, some significant vandalism taking place, discipline just across the board within schools. Are we looking to institute some type of a plan to create a safer environment for the other students and for our teachers as well? Because we did see the pictures. The town had sent us some reports, and some of the vandalism in the bathrooms were pretty significant and ongoing. Is there a plan in place to help remedy that situation and create a safer environment in our schools?
Absolutely. So I do want to partition the discipline and the safety issue, or I'm sorry, the vandalism and the safety issue. So vandalism does not necessarily equate to a safety issue. It's a destruction of Board of Ed property, so to speak. I've been having ongoing conversations with our principals most recently. I've been working with Richard Jarrell as well as our colleagues at the town to assess the scope of the damage. We understand that there's a financial piece that is incurred with that. I have given some feedback to our administrators, and they're going to work with their students in their respective school communities to put some things in place to hopefully reduce the volume and the frequency of that happening. Now, we did review all the data, and the vast amount of those damages that you initially brought to my attention happened last fall. It does happen in sporadic instances, but nonetheless, vandalism or damage to the bathrooms are completely unacceptable. And you probably heard Rebecca in her student report mention that I visited one of our student groups, and this is actually one of the conversation topics. So they're very clear on my position on things. But beyond that, I think we need to continue to promote this sense of pride in terms of who we are. And when we have a world-class facility such as where we're at right now at Stratford High School, we have a responsibility. And I'm talking about our teenagers have a responsibility to take care of those things. So those are some of the core concepts of what I discussed with the kids. But beyond that, there's some work that we're going to do, certainly at the secondary level with our middle schools and our high schools around that specific topic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. QP?
Yes, Mr. Henrik mentioned that photos were distributed to him. Were they distributed to the full board? I don't recall receiving any.
I received some reports from the town regarding that. I can forward them.
I think that would be great since we're discussing it as a group. It would make sense that we're all included.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's also something we can do at the Board of Ed liaison meeting and at the planning, but I didn't want to violate any of the quorum rules by forwarding emails. So, but Dr. Sunday also has those reports, and perhaps he can forward them and help us avoid that issue.
Mrs. Wilsey?
Yes, Dr. Sunday, I just have two questions that are stirring in the community. Graduation date, voted on last year, confirmed, correct, June 13th.
It is.
Okay.
Kinda. So there's, so as of today, we would be in good shape, I believe, to move forward. I actually just had a chance to take a look at the calendar. But there's statutory language that says that we can't have graduation until we surpass the 180th day of instruction. Okay? So there's a realistic chance that if we have more snow days, that it could be impacted. Okay, so we may have to revisit this with the board. As you know, we set the graduation date last fall. I don't suspect or anticipate a wide amount of further disruption. Typically, when you get to the second week of March, snow is any kind of significant snow that is disruptive enough to result in a cancellation is rare, but it may be something that we have to keep a close eye on and bring back to the board, because that's a variable that we can't control, which is inclement weather.
Okay, so last year when we were able to vote and keep that date set despite snow days, was that COVID-related waiver type? Do you remember we were able to set the date and never waiver on it despite, it could have been
I think
quite possibly because we were hybrid and remote and all
we
of
had
that.
remote
It was.
Remote
opportunity, yeah.
approvals, okay. And the last day of school currently? Because
14th,
we've all lost track.
June 14th, graduation is set on June 13th.
Well, with the
Oh,
snow days,
last-
with the snow days, you know
last
that?
day.
With the snow days, with the 4 snow days that we have, we are projecting for the 20th of June.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Sunday? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Moving on to Ms. Mangini. We did have an opportunity to hear from her at our finance meeting, but if you have anything else to add, Ms. Mangini?
I was just going to say, my report will be short because I think over the past month you've heard enough from me. But the one thing I did want to highlight this evening was in my memo to you, and I just wanted to make certain to bring to your attention that the Food Service Management Company RFP process is truly in gear. We had mandatory state training on February 3rd. And I think it's important to note that the state truly guides this process, and they are actually the approver of the final proposal and the food service management contract. It will be brought to the board for final review, and you do actually vote on it, but that's not until the state gives its blessing and tells us that it meets all the necessary criteria. I did include in your packets a timeline. It is pretty aggressive because, as I mentioned earlier, we, through the state, got off to a late start on this. But we are moving along, and we will be fine. And we will be establishing a review committee soon, so I will be reaching out through Dr. Sunday's office to the chair to perhaps suggest someone who might be interested in serving on that committee. And that's my
Wonderful,
report.
thank you. Any questions for Ms. Mangini? Okay, thank you. Moving on to our Assistant Superintendent's report, Dr. Gaeta.
Good evening, everyone. As many of you know, and as Rebecca and Rayhan shared with us tonight, the Portrait of a Graduate launch took place last week at our 2 high schools. I might add to the reports that provided by our high school students that the attributes that are highlighted in the Portrait of a Graduate work, communicator, collaborator, lifelong learner, engaged and compassionate community member, solution-driven problem solver, are all owned by the entire district and community. Therefore, the next stage of the project will be to align the work of the middle and elementary schools in supporting the portrait. The portrait is the North Star, as was mentioned previously, that will focus the work and the decisions that we continue to make in the district. We're also getting ready for our annual Summit of Assessments. We start off with the SAT at our high schools on March 23rd. The science assessment, Next Generation Science Standards, takes place in grades 5, 8, and 11 on April 4th through 8th. And then the Smarter Balanced Assessment for ELA for grades 3 through 8 is from April 25th to May 6th. And the Smarter Balanced Math for grades 3 through 8 runs from May 9th to May 27th. Information to families will be sent out in the coming weeks, and the building test coordinators are meeting now and planning the building protocols. I also want to refer back to a few remarks that Rayhan made about the after-school SAT class. I think this was brought up before, but we currently have between 75 and 80 students from both high schools participating. So kudos to them. Third, our next professional learning session for certified staff is on April 1st, and that is an early dismissal day. Proposals are currently being submitted and include topics in specific content areas such as reading, math, physical education, world language, school counseling, social emotional learning, and specific instructional strategies to support students. I will make a final report to the curriculum subcommittee in April, And we're all looking forward to this time to share, collaborate, and work together.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Gata? Yes, Ms. Cupie.
It might be a question for curriculum, but I was curious, do we offer PD for helping teachers deal with families? So, teachers go through the process, right, and they're great with the kids, and I'm just wondering, as we talk more about engaging families and kind of that full circle of how we support our children, are we doing any kind of professional development there in terms of how to communicate with families?
I think in multiple ways we are,
Okay.
but I think this is an ongoing effort. I would, again, I have to recognize the work that Yvonne Temple is doing, because discussing not only including students, but including families in support of their students, I think is important. And so it has to be ongoing conversations. Again, I refer to Parent C, because we have parents here who are interested in understanding the school district and how they can support the school district. But I also think, in addition to that, again, I'll refer back to ESSER funds. Every building has a family outreach team. So if students are having difficulty with attendance or other issues, we have individuals who reach out to families to find out what the challenges are and try to assist in that way. But I think some of the other areas that we're working on are making sure that our communication is accessible to all of our families. And so I know that buildings are working very hard at that, but it's a complex and multifaceted issue, I think, that we need to continue to work on.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Gata? Okay, thank you, Dr. Gata. Moving on to the consent agenda, I will entertain a motion to amend the consent agenda to include the minutes from our special board meeting held on February 16th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kupie. Mrs. Wiltsey, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Amendment passes. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of meeting minutes from January 31st, 2022, the meeting minutes from February 3rd, 2022, the meeting minutes from February 5th, 2022, the meeting minutes from February 16th, 2022, and the personnel document.
So moved.
Second.
Kristen, second. I motion.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do a roll call vote on this. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, passes unanimously. Moving on to items for action and discussion. We have one budget transfer that we discussed in our finance meeting. Bear with me, guys, I'm sorry, I'm just pulling it up. It was passed on to us with a favorable recommendation. And okay. I will entertain a motion to accept the proposed transfer, which is to adjust salary accounts in Object 111 for various reasons, such as resignations, new hires, transfers, maternity leaves, and salary reclass adjustments. Residual available balance we move to the salary reserve account. Total budget transfer amount is $645,872.82. So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Wiltsey, Ms. Cupie, thank you. Roll call vote, or do we have any discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote. Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes. Our next item for discussion will be the acceptance of the school year 22-23 calendar. You guys received a draft. This is just a discussion, and hopefully we'll be able to move this to action at our next board meeting. So I will open up the floor for discussion.
Perhaps before we get into discussion, I could probably preface. So this is a pretty standard calendar, and it's timely since we're looking forward to next year with the budget. This calendar, this proposed calendar as it stands, will have students returning on September 1st, and the tentative last day of school will be, I believe, June 30th or June 13th. As we constructed this calendar, a few people over the last few months have brought up discussions around additional recognizable days. So for instance, Three Kings Day is something that's come up in conversation. Juneteenth, although it may not, if we don't have any kind of severe impact from inclement weather, we should be done before that day. But also discussions around that in terms of how we recognize that as a board. And then lastly, from the district office and knowing the work that we have to do down the road from an instructional and whole school and whole system improvement standpoint, I would like to revisit and understand that the board, prior to my arrival, made some reductions in terms of the PLC days. And those are critical instruments for teachers to be able to have opportunities to collaborate around things that are very specific to school goals. Outside of that, it's a challenge for teachers to get together and kind of discuss student performance and use that information and use that conversation to inform how they're going to adjust instructions. I think that would be a critical asset to put back into the hands of our staff. So I'd like to leave that on the table for the board.
Ms.
May I?
Okay.
So last year when we were going through the school calendar approval process, I made a recommendation for consideration of a few additional culturally aware holidays. And it was, I guess maybe it was too short of a turnaround or something to that effect, but I would like to forward that over to you for consideration as we're putting this new calendar together.
This is purely in a discussion phase, and hopefully that we can have some deep conversations about this, and then over the next board meeting or two, we can take a vote on this.
I know that there are several districts around us. I think Stanford, Bridgeport, New Haven, that do celebrate Three Kings Day. And I do believe we probably have the population in our town, the diversity to certainly support celebrating this holiday within our schools. So I'd like to, give everybody that food for thought. I believe in the 22-23 school year, Three Kings Day will be January 6th. So that might be something to consider.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my only concern with that would be our kids are coming back from a school holiday, at least a week long, week and a half holiday. They're back for a few days, and then then they go to another day off, and then a week later we have Martin Luther King Day off. So in my mind, it kind of makes it difficult to create and hold that continuity and that educational opportunity. I mean, the kids, they come back from a week-long holiday. It's going to take them a couple of days to get their feet back underneath them, and then they get started again, and then we're giving them another day off. And so it just, to me, although I respect the holiday, it seems like it is detrimental to the education process. So I would just kind of be wary of that. So
I think sorry, go ahead.
I would like to argue that usually when the school year starts, the first day of school, they go in 1 day or 2 days, and then they're off for Labor Day. So there goes that,
And I've always disagreed with that as well. Just, I understand they got to get their books and get their stuff, but those couple of days are kind of not really educational days. So I would even like to see that done differently. But, as far as adding another day, I would caution against it.
So again, this is, at the discretion of the board. I would probably say, though, this would not be a new move for districts. There's several districts, as the board chair just mentioned, that do this. But I would also go as far as saying, recognizing that day on the calendar is probably not vastly different than the other days that might be recognized, national holidays, religious holidays inclusive. But there's also debatably no quantitative, qualitative data that says it's detrimental to the learning process. We do know that kids being in school is certainly an asset, but we also know, pedagogical theory 101, is that kids learn at different rates. But we also recognize that our teachers are dynamic in what they do, and they adjust to student learning based on data that's at their hands. So we can have broader conversations about this, but I don't think we have any tangible data or evidence in our hands that suggests that adopting this as part of our calendar would significantly damage student learning.
One last comment. Oh,
No,
President, go. You sure?
Yeah.
So I just wanted, one last comment is part of the work that we're trying to do is creating a space in our schools where kids feel like they belong, recognized, accepted, right? So I don't think we should be fighting against acknowledging their culture, right? You want them to feel like they fit in, and so they'll be more engaged. I just don't see why we should push back on something like this. We should be looking to encourage more of this for our students. Thank you.
Just a question, kind of off the topic. We're talking about 2 additional days, maybe 2 additional days, 1 additional day?
Three Kings Day would be January 6th.
Right.
Another thing I was going to address when this conversation was dropped is Juneteenth, which is now a federal holiday. It is on this calendar after our last day of school. However, I would like to discuss what do we do if we have snow days and then we go beyond that date. So that would be the other date that I was going to discuss.
Okay, so we're discussing 2 days. We have 182 days currently. Are we talking about taking 2 days away or extending our school year 2 days?
It would, based on the proposal, would extend by
One.
a definite one.
One,
Yeah.
A
definitely, okay.
probable, based on inclement weather, a
Okay.
probable 2.
Right, and the Juneteenth day, if, I'm bringing that up now, but if we recognize that now federally recognized holiday on June 19th, that wouldn't technically be a part of our 182 days. It would come after, and I suppose we need a contingency plan about what to do should we go past those days. If that makes sense, complicated.
No, that part can get a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
But it's just in discussion phase. We can discuss as a board. We don't have to make a decision today. We have
Yep.
a couple months.
Any other discussion about the calendar? Dr. Sunday, may I ask how many PLC days you're considering?
What I'm used to is one a month. And I know for a fact, we'll receive a wide amount of support from our teachers because they crave opportunities to collaborate. The work is hard. We understand that. But beyond that, the entire construct behind the PLCs is the fact that we recognize that there's a certain level of expertise within our organization, and we want to create opportunities for people to tap into those expertise and make sure that actions that come out of that are aligned to school board goals.
Just for clarification, Madam Chair, those are half days or full?
To my knowledge, they've been historically, all of them have been half days
days,
in our
right,
district.
okay.
Correct. So there would not be any real impact on the calendar itself. It would just be half days.
Any other discussion? Okay. Moving on to our fiscal year 2022-2023 itemized estimate of expenditure. I will entertain a motion to send forward a 4.57% increase in the amount of $5,495,322 for a total budget of $125,679,660 to the town.
So moved.
Second. Ms. QP, Mrs. Welty, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will have a roll call vote. Mr. Henrik.
Madam Chair, based on some of the discussion I had earlier, I think this would have been a good opportunity for us to do some work, and I do appreciate the hard work that the staff, the administration has done, but I do think there's some room in there for some greater efficiencies. I do not believe cutting teachers is the way to do it, and I tried to offer up some, and I do have some other suggestions, but I saw that it wasn't going anywhere, so I let it go. But because of that, I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Cupey?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-1. Moving on to tabled items. Would anybody like to take anything off the table?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to remove the residency report off the table.
Second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Fabian. It is off the table.
Thank you. Ms. Mangini, I noticed that we don't have a report from Mr. Imbro this month, and I was just curious if one could be sent as an update of his active investigations.
I can speak to that. So I have a regularly scheduled meeting with Mr. Imbro. We've been working actively, and we are tracking those statistics. I can share with this board that over the last month we had somewhere approximately 30 cases that were sent to him. We have successfully closed 2 of those cases, and the one is pending. So there's more work to be done in that. But Mr. Imbro is scheduled to be here quarterly, and in the interim, if the board would like a report, because of the frequency in which I meet with him and my involvement in this process, I'd be happy to share that with the board.
That would be great. Yeah, it could just be a part of our packet rather than requirement of a report. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I know we did on our last report, he had 17 cases, and so we've had 30 additional cases brought to his attention?
That were sent in, correct.
Pardon?
30 cases that were initiated from the schools or various anonymous sources that were sent to his desk, correct.
So is that 30 cases beyond, after he did his last report, or 30 cases?
It's 30 over the last month that were forwarded.
So we have 47 active.
That's not, so it's a fluid process. So as he goes through the investigation, they progress through different phases of the investigation.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm just really having a hard time hearing you.
Sure, I can speak a little bit louder. What I'm saying is that it's a fluid process. So as these initiated cases, suspected cases come in, he can only respond to a few because it includes surveillance. He can only respond to a few in any given day or any given week. So it becomes a fluid process. But 30 cases coming in can come in with just suspicion. It doesn't mean they're substantiated, but at the end of the day, he takes as much of the artifacts, the conversations he's having with people who report it, and then he investigates it. After he investigates it, he sits down with myself, we unpack it, we determine a conclusion based on the facts of the evidence that we have, and because of this process, I personally meet with him every week to analyze the case. After we determine that there are cases that reach the threshold for disenrollment, we go ahead and issue out those letters to those families, and the families have the ability by statute to make an appeal.
And so, but he's still only working 3 hours a day?
I don't know if it's as airtight as just 3 hours a day, but I'm listening to you, and it sounds like you're alluding to the fact that you would like for him to be out there with increased hours?
Well, I think it's been an ongoing case, and an ongoing problem here in town, and the fact that 30 new cases popped up in 1 month. I'd like to see the problem resolved.
So I'll share with you that unless you have the ability to control the behaviors of people outside of the board, I don't know if there's ever going to be a complete resolution to that, right? I think we can decrease the volume of the suspicion, right, by being clear about our expectations and being clear about the evidence that people can provide that demonstrate that they live in our town. But this is a fluid process, and if you ask me, or if I were to ask you what resolved looks like, I don't know if that answer is gonna be sustainable. But we are always going to stay on top of it to the extent that people report it. But at the same time, reporting based on suspicion is a fleeting concept in and of itself. So we need to make sure that we're maximizing using resources efficiently. And then when we have credible artifacts and evidence, then we take the necessary measures to get families to make the right decision.
I mean, so similar to the vandalism, having proper policies or processes in place can help alleviate some of that, and within time, the need for more hours might be reduced. But and I know it's not a problem you created.
It's not, but it's a challenge. I don't call it a problem. It's a challenge that I inherited, which is fine.
Absolutely.
But I think over the last 4 to 6 months, I've also shared with this board that I have inserted myself in this process, and
You
I
have?
have put in structures to keep a closer eye on this work. And when necessary, we'll respond with the appropriate measures. But at the same time, we want to make sure that our families are not unintentionally being targeted, particularly if they do live here in town. So it's a delicate balance in that respect, and debatably we can probably even extend that and say there's probably specific families that are reported on suspicion more so than others. So it's a delicate balance. We've talked broadly here about making sure that Stratford is a very inclusive community. And sometimes, even though there is intent around some of these measures, that intent can sometimes convey that certain people should not feel included in our community. So it's a delicate balance, and as we go through this process, we need to engage our families with compassion and understanding, and then be clear that if they choose to be here, then they need to furnish us with the proper documentation and evidence that indicates they live here.
And just to your credit too, I did speak to a friend of a friend who came to you in reference to extending their participation in our school system, and you informed them of their rules, and I was glad to hear that you were standing behind that policy. So
my commitment is to do right for our families and to do right for our kids. And there are certain statutory authorities that fall under my office. And when a kid is here for 12 out of the 13 years, I have certain authorities. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we don't have a system that is vigorously abused. Okay, so that's why I was clear with you that I don't know if there's ever an end game. You can't ever fault family members for wanting a better opportunities for their children, right? Or when life circumstances get in the way and they've been a resident here for some time and their child cries to them at night that they don't want to leave their friends, certain people gain the system to stay here for as long as they can. We will continue to work with Stratford families, and as long as kids are in our school system and they live in our town, they're always going to be our kids.
Any other discussion around this? Okay. I will entertain a motion to retable residency.
I will motion to return it.
Seconded. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to committee assignments and reports. The curriculum committee met. Ms. Carol Fabian, would you like to report?
Sure. We had several wonderful presentations during our curriculum meeting from Mrs. Cody and Mrs. Scandura. They presented an update on the kindergarten number quarter implementation and the professional development given to the teachers on this. We also had a presentation from the members of the Portrait of a Graduate Committee, which shared their work and showed us the vision that was just recently released.
Superb. Mr. Kennedy or Ms. QB, do you have anything to add? Okay, thank you so much. Finance Committee met immediately before this. Ms. Wiltsey, would you like to fill us in?
Find us a February date where we did not meet. Yes, we had 4 successful budget workshops, 5 actually, I believe, and did a lot of great work. Thank you very much to the entire administration who were so thorough in the planning of the budget and the presentation of it. Before this meeting, we met as a committee to approve and push forth to the Board of Education, as you all have heard, a 4.57% increase to the proposed budget of our Stratford school system, which totals $125,679,660. And in our meeting, I would be remiss if I did not highlight Dr. Clemmy and the great work that he's doing on our grant side and all of the details around that. So, more to come.
Thank you so much. Plant and Planning did not meet?
We did not meet because of the schedule of the February meetings, but I would like to, I looked on the website, it does say that we meet the first Thursday of every month, so I would like to schedule that meeting.
Every other month,
Pardon?
every other month.
Yeah, well, I would also like to, and I don't know if now would be the time to do it, but I would like to I would like to amend that schedule so that we're meeting every month. I think that's a fairly important committee, and I don't know if it should be done here through this board.
I'm not certain either. I don't personally have an issue with it, but.
Well, being a co-chair of that
Yes, ma'am.
committee, I would like to have
Yes.
talked about it with you
Yes.
prior to you making a motion, to do so.
That might be something to discuss and then bring to us.
Next
or-
meeting,
Yeah.
exactly.
So hopefully we can have this meeting next Thursday. Again, I think this is a very important committee with significant agenda items that need to be discussed on a regular basis. And I don't feel that doing it on a bi-monthly basis allows it the prominence that it should have.
Duly noted, thank you, and I look forward to hearing the results of your conversation. Liaison also did not meet, correct? Okay. Policy review, you guys have not met. Athletic review, not yet. Cabe, Janice, do you have any updates for us?
Not very much, just a lot of conversation and support around masking and the new, guidance and changes that have been happening, and just supporting different boards around that. And also, their support involved, helping boards deal with a lot of friction at their meetings due to the masking. So hopefully that will die down and, we can move on to some other things. So.
You bet, thank you so much. CES will be meeting this Thursday. I will give you guys an update next month. And Stratford High renovation building needs, did that meet?
I haven't heard from building needs yet.
Okay.
What their schedule is.
All right, excellent. Seeing no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Liddell, Ms. Fabian, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned at 8:48. Thank you so much.